All right, so now that we kind of got the gist of how the equilibrium should pan out and what a deadweight loss is, and non-binding versus binding, I kind of want to wrap it all together. We're going to do an example. So first, we're going to start with the vanilla example where there's no price control, and we're going to use the demand and supply equation to find the equilibrium price and equilibrium quantity, the way that we did in the midterm one material in the last couple lectures or whatever. Then we're going to find the consumer, producer, and total surplus. Again, midterm one material. Then once we find that, I'm going to introduce the price control, okay? And we're going to see how the consumer, producer, surplus changes, how the equilibrium price and quantity changes. We're going to calculate deadweight loss, all that. So we're going to see how the market is affected based on the introduction of different kinds of price controls. All right, so I think there's 3 total ones we solved today. So the vanilla one, one type of price control, and then a second type of price control. And yeah, we'll do it live. I'm gonna stop the video after each example so that you guys can calculate it on your own and kind of see how it goes. And if you're not getting it the first time, that's fine. Definitely for things like deadweight loss, I don't necessarily expect you to be able to calculate it immediately. That's why I'm going through this example. But just give it a shot and don't be like, oh, I'm not getting it the first time around, because there's still stuff I need to show you that we'll see be in the example. Okay. All right. So you're in a rent-controlled city. Okay. Before rent control, the demand for apartments was P equals 1,000 minus 2QD, and the supply was 100 plus QS. Find the equilibrium price and quantity. All right. So by now, you would have already done this on Blackboard. Hopefully you were able to solve it, but let's solve it together. If you haven't solved it yet, do solve it. It's not enough to passively follow these lectures. You have to be actively doing the work. Otherwise, you're not going to get it. So we have P equals 100 plus QS, I believe it was. And P equals 1,000 minus 2QD. So let me make this bad boy big. Well, not that big. All right, hopefully that's fine. All right, so let me just make sure I got the right ones. 1,000 minus 2QD, 100 plus QS. Yeah. Okay, so this is the supply equation. The below is the demand equation. If I asked you what the intercepts were for this graph, right? What would they be? So remember, slope-intercept form looks like this: y equals mx plus b. In econ terms, it'll be your y-axis good as always your p. P equals mq plus b. Okay. What is the number being multiplied by q for the supply equation? It's 1. So the slope is 1 for the supply equation. The b is 100. That's your y-intercept. Okay. For the demand equation, what's your slope? It's -2. Sorry about all the scrolling in and out. That's not intentional. Your demand is -2. Or excuse me, your slope for demand is -2. And your y-intercept for demand is 1,000. Okay. So if we were to graph them, what goes on the y-axis? It's price. X-axis is quantity. Demand downward sloping. Where does it start? It starts at 1,000, the y-intercept. Okay, where does supply start? It starts at 100, the y-intercept for the supply graph. Okay, this is supply. This is demand. Okay, if I were to ask you where on the graph is the equilibrium price and quantity, you should be able to draw like this bad boy. Okay, so this is just the vanilla market before any price control. So there's your P star, there's your Q star. Now we have to actually solve for what their numerical values are. Okay, so how do I do that? Well, for equilibrium, you have one P, and that's equal to P star. You have one Q, and that's equal to Q star. And your Q is going to be this, your Q star is going to be the same thing: quantity supplied and quantity demanded. Okay, so there's one quantity supplied, one quantity demanded, and one price at equilibrium. Okay, let me move this bad boy over so that I can do the math here. All right, so I'm going to set P equal to P, right? And basically set P equal to P star. So P star equals 100 plus QS. P star is also equal to 1000 minus 2 QD. All right, and you don't need this P star anymore. You can take it away. It's just an extra equation. It doesn't really matter. All right, what else do I know? I know that QS equals QD equals Q star. So I have 100 plus Q star is equal to 1000 minus 2 Q star. All right, so what do I know now? I have one equation, one unknown. It's a solvable system. Okay? So I'm going to add 2Q to both sides. I get 100 plus 3Q star is equal to 1000 minus 2Q plus 2Q. That just simplifies to 1000. Now I'm going to subtract 100 from both sides. I get 3Q star equals 1000 minus 100, 900. Now I'm going to divide both sides by 3. So I'm going to get Q star is equal to 300. Okay, you should be able to do this in your sleep at this point. If you're not, come to office hours, ask me questions. Okay, don't just sit there in silence. Okay. All right, so next up I need to find what P star is. So what is P star? Okay. I can plug it into either equation. I can plug it in the supply. P star equals 100 plus Q star, which is equal to 100 plus 300. So that's 400. Okay. So I plugged in my Q star of 300 in. All right, so personally right now I think that P star is equal to 400, Q star is equal to 300. The only way I know to check is, so I plugged it in the supply curve. I plug Q star in the supply curve, solve for P star. Now what if I plug it in the demand curve? I plug Q star into the demand curve, and I get a different P star. Well, then I've done the math wrong, and I need to go back and see where I made my error. But we'll double check. P star equals 1000 minus 2 Q star. Okay. Sorry, I realize this is falling down a little bit. So P star equals 1000 minus 2 times 300, my Q star. And what's that equal to? That's equal to 400. Gee whiz, I must have done something right. Okay? So I can say with, a reasonable amount of certainty, Q star equals 300, P star equals 400. If when you solved it on Blackboard you got something else, go back. Like, don't just take my word for it. Solve it through without looking at my math. Okay? If you're not comfortable in this, you should be able to, see where you made the mistake, because I can only show you the right answer. I can't show you where you're personally going wrong unless you come to office hours, okay? All right, so just to finish off this graph, Q star is equal to 300. There's a Sparta, that kind of stuff. 400 is equal to your P star. Sorry about the handwriting. It's very difficult to write on this whiteboard here. All right. So we found the equilibrium, and I know the next question will be find the consumer and producer surplus. Okay. So let's do that. Okay, what is the consumer surplus? Just graphically, what is your consumer surplus? Consumer surplus is this area between the demand curve and your equilibrium price. Consumer surplus. All right. And what's your producer surplus? It's the area between the supply curve and price. Producer surplus. Okay. So right now we're not dealing with trapezoids. We're only dealing with triangles, so it should be a lot easier to calculate. Or maybe it's easier to calculate. I don't know. I think it's probably a little easier to calculate. All right. So let's shuffle this guy away for a second. We'll put him on this side over here. I guess I can't do that. So file that bad boy away. I'm going to create a new little consumer surplus and producer surplus calculation over here. That's too big. Should I do it slanted? You guys like it slanted? I want it slanted. No. All right. Sorry. It's boring just teaching these, so I got to make it interesting somehow. All right. So consumer surplus area between demand and price. Okay. Let's make it a little bit smaller, a wee bit smaller. Okay, so that's going to be a triangle. The formula for area of a triangle is 1/2 base times height. All right, now this is something y'all messed up on your midterms a lot. So you got the base right. The base is Q star. So CS equals 1/2. Base is 300. Most of y'all were able to do that once you got your Q star. What you did wrong is, actually this is more relevant for the supply, the producer surplus, but it works for both. What y'all did wrong though is, for some reason, you guys forgot to put these intercepts, particularly for supply where you treat it like 0. So the height is going to be your intercept minus your equilibrium price, right? You got to start here, go down to here. Okay, this is the triangle starts at 1,000, goes to 400. So that's going to be your height. 1,000 minus 400, or 600. Okay. So consumer surplus was 1/2. I like symmetry. 1/2 300 times 600. You bring out your calculator. 300 times 600 times 0.5. You get 90K. 90K. Should have done that in my head, but I always mess up the zeros, so I'd rather just do it with the calculator. Okay. It's okay to do that. Not just because I'm doing that, because it's always good to check your work with something. Okay. So we got 90K as the consumer surplus. What about producer surplus? It's also a triangle, so it's going to be 1/2 base times height. Okay. And you have 1/2. What's your base? It's going to be 300, your Q star. Okay, what about your height? Well, your height goes from this point to this point. So that's a vertical distance of 300. Oh, excuse me, it should be 400 minus 100, which is a vertical distance of 300. And sorry for y'all who are like, oh, this is super easy. Why is he spending so much time on it? It's not easy for everybody in the course, so I just want to, take my time with it. And if that's the case, if you're like, oh, this is easy breezy, watch this on double speed or on 1.5 speed or something like that. Okay. So let's do the calculation here. 0.5 times 300 times 300 is 45K. So we have consumer surplus is 90K, producer surplus is 40K. Your total surplus is going to be the sum of those things. So 90K plus 45K equals 135K. All right. So that is that example. We got a total surplus of 135,000. 135,000 what? I don't know, utility. I would probably map this into dollars, but it's not exactly necessary that you do so. Price doesn't always have to be quoted in dollars for what it's worth. But let's say $135,000 is our total surplus. Okay, I'm going to stop the video there. you're going to be presented with another version of this market, but this time with a price ceiling. I want you guys to calculate that on Blackboard. Okay, think about this one. All right, think about it. You have a price ceiling of $500. What does that do to equilibrium price and equilibrium quantity? All right, going to stop the video, solve it on Blackboard, and then when you've got the answer, come back and we can talk about it.